Good morning and welcome to Chamber RVA Annual Meeting 2020. We appreciate you joining us today as we reflect on 2020 and look forward to 2021. I'm Brian Anderson, President and CEO of Chamber RVA, and we thank you for spending some time with us this morning. This year's annual meeting definitely looks different than last year. However, the reason for getting together, albeit virtual. Sam's there background for a reason? Okay. This year's annual meeting definitely looks different than last year. However, the reason for getting together, albeit virtual, remains just as meaningful and important. Although 2020 brought challenges and headwinds, it's been a terrific year for growth, introspection, and humility. With an amazing team, a committed and dedicated board of directors, and our regional partners, Chamber RVA is poised to do even more work toward prosperity for all. And we're able to do this work through the generosity of our investors who sponsor our initiatives and our events. We extend our gratitude to our sponsors for making this opportunity to get together possible. And today, our annual meeting is sponsored by our bronze sponsors, Astera, Dominion Energy, NBC 12, CW, Richmond, our silver sponsor, Oregon Construction and Development, and our gold sponsor, Capital One. Our presenting sponsor is Atlantic Union Bank. And it's my pleasure to invite Maria Tedesco, Chamber RVA Treasurer and President of our presenting sponsor, Atlantic Union Bank, to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm really proud to be here and represent Atlantic Union Bank. And we're a proud sponsor of Chamber RVA annual meeting. If you're not familiar with Atlantic Union Bank, I'd like to just share a bit of who we are and what makes us different. We started as a small rural county bank in Virginia in 1902. Well, fast forward about 120 years, and today Atlantic Union Bank has grown to become the largest regional bank headquartered in Virginia, with a presence across the Mid-Atlantic from Maryland to North Carolina. And even with all that growth, we continue to put our customers and our clients first, which is really a reflection of our goal to make banking easier. We're also very committed to enhancing and improving the communities where our customers live, work, and where they play. It's really part of who we are as a company, and one of the reasons we're proud to support the Chamber RVA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, and Atlantic Union Bank for your continued support, but also for your service to our board as our treasurer and running our finance committee, but also what you do for the RVA community. Thank you for your time this morning and all that you do for us. I'd also like to introduce this year's chair, Mark Horrigan, founder and CEO of Oregon Construction and Development. Chamber RVA is fortunate to have such a strong and steady leader guiding us through these unprecedented times. And we thank him for all he's done in 2020 and for what he's going to continue to do in 2021. And on a personal note, I just want to thank Mark for his personal support of me through my transition and our team, as we have had a difficult 2020, as you all have. So Mark, thank you for all you've done for me and the board and our team.
Mark, I believe you're muted. You'll have to unmute yourself. I apologize.
Sam, let me know if you can hear me now.
There you go.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Brian. We are very fortunate that Chamber RVA is governed by a distinguished executive committee and a board of directors that includes some of the top community leaders who lend their time, their talent, and their resources to support the mission and values of Chamber RVA. This is, I will tell you, a very dedicated group doing important work, and you'll have the opportunity to meet some of them during the program today. But first, I'd like to recognize some new board members who will be joining us in 2021. Greg Bishop, partner with Williams Mullen. Marlon Buckner, co-founder and principal of MB2 Solutions. Matthew Conrad, executive director of government and board relations for VCU. Kara Gunther, executive director of government relations and health policy for VCU. Perry Miller, president and CEO of the Capital Region Airport Commission. Abby Rogers, CEO and president of the YMCA of Greater Richmond. Chris Shockley, the CEO and president of the Virginia Credit Union, and Melody Short, co-founder of the Jackson Ward Collective. Each of these people will be great additions to Chamber RVA. We'd also like to recognize the board members whose term ended this year, and we thank them very much for their service. Chrissy Gathright with Apple REIT, Brian Jackson with Herschler, Genevieve Roberts with Gallagher Titan, John Sarve with Floricane, and Ken Whalen with Free Agents Marketing. Each of these individuals gave generously of their time and their talents, and Chamber RVA is better for their service. You know, like so many organizations, Chamber RVA came into 2020 with a lot of momentum and excitement, only to have our plans upended like the rest of the world. And in spite of that adversity, it truly has been an exceptional year for Chamber RVA, and we have a lot for which to be proud. So let's take a few minutes in this video and let's look at some of our highlights from 2020. Very good. I hope you enjoyed that. So as I reflect on the past year and how our world has changed, Chamber RVA was able to alter its direction and provide our members and business community with guidance, support, and information to navigate these very challenging times. You know, we're an organization that is centered around the interaction of people. We connect people, we educate them, we train them, we travel together, all of which in the past we have done in person. And as we had to pivot and make that change, to me, there were two key factors that allowed us to make that change successfully. And first and foremost, it is our sponsors. Without their tremendous support and flexibility, none of this would have occurred. They stood by our side, steadfast in their support, and the sponsors that I talk about also include our donors to the individual events, also the companies that send attendees to the various events and continue to sponsor or be a part of our programs. The second key to our success was an amazing staff. Our Chamber RVA staff, you'll see the names on the screens right now. If you see them, run into them, please say thank you. They made a hard pivot in the early part of this in 2020. And it was through that dedication and the support of the sponsors that they were able to take and change the resources, the events, the programming, and take them all to a virtual environment. And so I'm really proud of this entire group led by Brian, but a wonderful staff who looked at every single cost, looked at every single way that we could take what we used to do and move it to a new environment. And so with our sponsors, our donors, and our staff, we were able to make 2020 a success. So how do we use those dollars? And what was the impact we were able to make with the support of all these great dollars? We had 15 virtual town halls covering a wide range of topics, including PPP, EIDL loans, as well as CARES and SBA loans. We partnered with VCU and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to have a bilingual town hall covering staying safe at work. We had COVID-19 health trends featuring regional health directors. We looked at mental health, talent acquisition, and retention and getting back to work after COVID-19. One of our signature projects was the RVA Small Business Relief Fund, where we partnered with Facebook to provide over 100 small businesses with $2,500 grants. And we continued the support with We Care RVA Rebuild Project and partnered with the MBL, Metropolitan Business League, on this important program. Our Shared Value Summit, which you saw in the video, was a 4-part series converting national and local civic-minded leaders and really change makers. And our discussions included reframing history, the culture of philanthropy, accelerating minority business growth, and economic mobility. We had other signature events, the Virtual Education Forum, Equity in Education, Mission Tomorrow, and our Hype Icon Awards, recognizing the young professionals in our community that took 2020 and all of its challenges and made the most of it. And I'd now like to welcome our Hype Chair, Abby Credicott, to recognize those recipients of the 2020 awards and the impact that they've had on our RVA community. Abby?
Morning all, thank you, Mark. 2020, as we all know, was a year unlike any other, which called for an event like any other. Icons 2020 honored and recognized the YPs in our community that have really taken this past year and made the most of it. Whether that was in their workplace, in the small businesses they own, or in the larger Richmond community, we have brilliant and creative folks here in RVA who have pivoted their businesses, led through crises, or stood up against injustices across our nation. The event was held in a virtual format on Thursday, December 3rd, featuring keynote speaker Rodney Robinson, the 2019 National Teacher of the Year. The event highlighted what makes RVA great and the incredible young professionals in it. I'm gonna go over the awards. So the first award was the Innovator Award. This was for the YP who took these uncertain times and thrived, whether they solved a big problem, made a service accessible, created a way to engage with clients or customers despite the restrictions of COVID-19. This YP saw the obstacle of a global pandemic or the racial injustice movement and made the most of it to impact their organization and their constituents. The 2020 recipient was Dr. Eric Edwards of Flow Corporation. On to the next award was our new normalizer for small businesses across the country. The impact of the pandemic hit hard, but creativity, risk-taking, and identifying unmet needs in the community allowed some small businesses to redirect and hit the mark. This award recognizes small businesses owned by YPs in the Richmond region who completely reworked the normal business plan or rebranded in order to stay afloat and meet the needs of customers throughout the pandemic. The 2020 recipient, the Richmond Experience. Our next award was the Movement Maker. Living and working in Richmond during a social justice movement provides a very unique perspective unlike any other. This award recognized a person or an organization that stood up for what was right in our region and organized to support, lead, educate, or all of the above in the movement for social justice in RVA. The 2020 recipient, Abu and Gorja, the Martin Agency. Our next award was the Diamond in the Rough, Leadership in Crisis. Managers and team leaders have a lot of expectations to have it all together, especially when the world goes sideways. Well, the world went sideways. And even so, there are amazing managers and team leaders within Richmond who motivated, extended grace, brought positivity, and had the courage to be vulnerable through an ever-changing landscape. This award is for a YP in a supervisory role in their organization who exhibited the above actions, making their team stronger than ever. The 2020 recipient, as you can see, is Hannah Mae White of Spectrum Health Systems. And our last award went to the YP Workplace Awards. This award recognizes organizations, small and large, in the greater Richmond region that excel at attracting, retaining, and developing young employees. Additionally, these organizations went above and beyond in safely accommodating and supporting their employees through unprecedented times. The winning organizations demonstrate a commitment to providing young professionals with opportunities for growth and development, encouraging YP's engagement in the greater Richmond community, attracting and retaining young professionals, valuing the contribution of young professionals. The 2020 recipient, as you can see again, the Martin Agency. And event over to you.
Thank you, Abby. There are a lot of accomplishments that we could talk about, but in the interest of time, I would encourage all of you to look at the 2020 annual report that will be distributed to you after this event. And once again, I'd like to say none of this would be possible without the members, our volunteers, and all of our supporters. I'd also like to recognize the Chamber team one more time. The staff consistently is recognized as some of the brightest and best in our region that work really hard to make sure Chamber RVA stays relevant. Reflecting on 2020 and all that we've accomplished helped us charter a path to 2021. I'm really excited to move forward with strong strategic initiatives that really influence the work that we do. We have some great committee chairs, and to start us off, I would like to welcome Jennifer Hunter, Chair of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. Jennifer?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. The racial equity movement has historic momentum, and the business community is well positioned to address systemic racism and inequities. In June of last year, Chamber RVA assembled a diverse task force of 15 members. These members included members of Chamber RVA, as well as non-members of the Chamber, but important leaders in the Richmond community. We had a very clear purpose when we came together. We wanted to identify and recommend tangible and sustainable solutions that Chamber RVA and its members can implement to help close race-based opportunity gaps in the Richmond region. We focused in 3 key areas: economic inclusion, education and workforce development, and criminal justice reform and public policy. We took the time to understand what these issues were, what the strategic alignment is within the region for the Chamber and for its members. We clarified what outcomes we wanted to deliver against and potential partners that we could work with. This is an unprecedented opportunity to come together and unite our community with intentional engagement, adopt a new purpose, and position Richmond for a recovery that is more inclusive and therefore stronger. So it's now time to move beyond recommendations to a clear area of focus. And we've done just that. There are 3 areas where we'll be keenly focused. The first is embedding equity as a core pillar of the mission and values of Chamber RVA. This means a sustained focus on equity within our organizational operations. We also know as a member organization, we want to equip Chamber RVA and our members to drive sustained change within and beyond our walls. And that means leading, leveraging, and educating the business community on diversity, equity, and inclusion as a core value and contributor to business success. And we know that we play an important role in the region. and we are committed to adopting a new way of working together to address systemic issues. Our intention is to help create support systems that increase access and mobility for underserved communities. We also took another step this year, and that was partnering with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and their Equality of Opportunity Initiative. Chamber RVA recently joined 500 other chambers and associations that have signed on to support the U.S. Chamber's Equality of Opportunity Initiative. The Equality of Opportunity agenda includes 4 key areas that the U.S. Chamber has identified to help close opportunity gaps. And those are education, employment, entrepreneurship, and criminal justice reform. And so I'm proud to say that the work the Chamber RVA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force worked on is very much aligned with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So as we look to 2021, there are a key set of steps that we are prepared to take to make progress. We know how important it will be to develop a statement of purpose and commitment so folks understand how Chamber RVA intends to contribute to this very important work. We want to implement the task force recommendations within our existing committee structure. We also know how important it is to continue the conversation with other important community stakeholders so that together we are making progress. We want to solidify strategic partnerships with similar organizations to amplify the work around race-based opportunity gaps within our region. And we know continuing to focus internally on diversity, equity, and inclusion training for Chamber RVA staff is going to be an important demonstration of our commitment. And finally, continuing to advocate for work that supports diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Chamber RVA is prepared to take bold action to establish our region as an inclusive and equitable community with diverse talent. The Chamber is at the beginning of a new journey. So are many of our members. We intend to broaden our reach, build new partnerships, and fully support our membership with tangible solutions along their own journey. It was a privilege, and I'm grateful for the leaders that participated on the task force, and I look forward to your ongoing support as we move this work to reality. And at this time, it's my privilege to introduce Paula Pando, Chair of the Workforce and Talent Development Committee.
Unmute. Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer. The Richmond region is outpacing Virginia and the US in population growth, drawing from a workforce of 1.1 million and growing. Is my slide screen up? Can everybody see the slides? And there we go. All right. We're outpacing Virginia and the US population and growth, drawing from a workforce of 1.1 million and growing. Long gone are the days where a high school diploma alone could get you a good job and a pension. Today, 65% of all good jobs require a post-secondary credential. And by 2027, that number jumps to 70%. Can we advance the slides? In 2027, that number jumps to 70%. This is a really exciting time for workforce and for talent development. Can we advance? Thank you. Historic investments have been made by the Commonwealth for tuition-free community college and workforce training and high-demand programs such as IT, healthcare, skilled trades, public safety, and early childhood education. And while developing talent is critical to a thriving and equitable economy, keeping talent is just as important. RVA Now is a Chamber RVA program supported by a 2019 grant from Go Virginia with matching contributions from the private sector, Richmond City, and the surrounding counties. RVA Now leverages the Chamber's strong reputation and business relationships to showcase the depth and diversity of employment opportunities to students. Not only does the region have powerhouse companies, it also offers a vibrant community to work, live, play, and in which to make an impact. The RVA Now brand launched in Q4 2020 with significant help from our regional employers, higher ed institutions, other event and promotional organizations, and student volunteers. And the website is just days away from going live. Spring programming for RVA Now in 2021 will be offered virtually and will include careers in advertising, marketing, and public relations, civic IQ and careers in nonprofits, careers in health sciences in the region. The Y Richmond Summer Internship Program, which is enrolling now, connects summer interns with each other and what it's like and what is great about the region over a 9-week period. Fall plans, we hope, include in-person events aimed at helping area college students make connections with employers, mentors, and learn more about the region outside their college bubble. Network to Work and Rev, one of my favorite topics. Network to Work is a new regional initiative of the Greater Richmond Workforce Development Coalition, connecting job seekers to employers with available jobs at good wages. Open to all participants seeking technician and trades level jobs, Network to Work prepares unemployed, underemployed, and low wage workers through a fast track pathway that may include workforce training, community college education, career and life coaching, and support services. Network to Work is both a service delivery model and a technology platform that takes a 3-pronged approach to connecting qualified job seekers and employers through an employer network, job seeker network, and service provider network. So employers with jobs post orders in the technology platform, and the job seeker network matches qualified candidates to jobs. Core members of this coalition launching Network to Work include the Community College Workforce Alliance, a partnership between Reynolds and John Tyler Community Colleges, the Capital Region Workforce Partnerships, City of Richmond's Office of Community Wealth Building, United Way of Greater Richmond and Petersburg, the Community Foundation for Greater Richmond, and Chamber RVA with support from VCU Health. Reemploying Virginians, also known as REV, is a $30 million allocation of federal stimulus funds to provide Virginians who lost work due to COVID scholarships so they can enroll in workforce programs in 5 high-demand industries, the same 5 sectors that are the focal points of the impending state investment in the G3 initiative. And just one example of impact. In just a few months, Reynolds, John Tyler Community College, in partnership with CCWA, have already helped nearly 900 people in the Richmond region build the skills for meaningful careers with good wages in areas like cloud computing, nursing, welding, HVAC technicians, early childhood caregivers, and more. We want to always thank our business and industry partners for their engagement in ensuring alignment between these training programs and the region's high demand jobs. Your commitment to advising these programs and providing internships and apprenticeships make all the difference. We look forward to continuing to work and build capacity and scale this work. Mission Tomorrow is a career exploration event for 8th graders in the region. All public schools from 8 localities and some private and parochial schools participate. This event was held virtually in 2020, like most events, with an estimated 12,000 8th graders attending and 150 exhibitors participating. Our plan, fingers crossed, is to return to an in-person event this fall, October 28th and 29th, 2021 at the Richmond Raceway. Fingers crossed, this will be our 6th year. And we will be seeking input this summer from educators, former student attendees, parents, and businesses on how to enhance an already successful event. We will also be putting together an education summit to be held virtually this summer, July, a virtual series of events to focus on building a workforce ecosystem, highlighting the various components, including local educational divisions, community organizations, and business partners. The target audience for the summit is educators and business leaders. And now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Ken Johnson, Chair of the Advocacy Committee.
Thanks, Paula. You know, Paula, I'm feeling some kind of way because they had moved my presentation behind your dynamic presentation, and what a wonderful job. I'm also feeling some sort of way because they used a double-sized picture of my head, but I'm gonna be okay here. Moving forward though, Chamber RVA has served as a fierce advocate for business and citizens of RVA on many issues addressing various and diverse business climates. Each year, we establish guiding principles to provide focus areas for our public agenda, our public policy agenda. And this year, we decided to really focus on workforce development, education, economic development, early childhood investment, and diversity and inclusion. With workforce development and education, as Paula mentioned earlier, it's really critical and important that we get this right, and that we have been supporting those policies and bills that really force and push workforce development to a new space as it relates to certification programs that align with our businesses. And economic development, we really want to push and be aggressive about supporting economic development opportunities for all businesses and all people. And that's very important to us. And under early childhood investment, we all know, and research has shown, the earlier children start, the better they are off in the future with education. And this is a critical area for us as we look at ourselves as a region, and we want to make education available to all kids and all youth in our region from all backgrounds. And as Jennifer pointed out earlier, diversity and inclusion is also a key principle for our advocacy efforts. Next slide, please. So under these key focus areas, this year in the General Assembly, we felt like we had net success, if you will, following up on our criminal justice reform items from last year, and even those that carried on to this year. In addition to that, the repeal of right to work, we opposed that. We were able to defeat that. Non-taxation of deductibility of paycheck protection programs, we supported that bill and that passed. And of course, Virginia tax credit, low-income housing, we supported that and that passed. And the strenuous notification requirements around environmental permits, we opposed that and that was defeated. As we move forward with our agenda, we do know that the right to work issue as well as environmental items will be on the table for years to come with the General Assembly, and we'll continue to be there watching that bill and looking to work through that process. One of the things I'd like to say from a personal moment is to thank Brian Anderson as well as John Easter for all the hard work they've done at the Chamber. But more importantly, there was a bill that came down at the last minute, House Bill 5002, that advocated for women and small-owned businesses to have contract opportunities with the state of Virginia. And Brian Anderson did not flinch in his support of this initiative, and it was tremendous. The Chamber came out and did a wonderful job in supporting this. It failed. It passed in the House and it stalled in the Senate only due to timing, and we do know that and feel like it will come back up in the future. But I want to give kudos to Brian and John for stepping out and supporting this very important initiative, because in my mind, the Chamber is made up mostly of small and women-owned businesses. Lastly, we established a new series, and this new series is Connect with Congress. And in this series, it allows you to have an opportunity to speak with your senators as well as your representatives from the area. And it's a 5-part series, and hopefully you all will join us with this. And next, I'd like to introduce Patty Wells, Chair of our Membership Engagement Committee. Patty?
Thanks, Ken, and good morning, everyone. Chamber RVA is dedicated to building a dynamic network of businesses that are working together to create a more livable, equitable, and prosperous future for everyone who calls RVA home. And the lifeblood of our organization is our members who have chosen to invest with Chamber RVA and help us achieve this goal. In 2020, the membership committee renewed its focus on introducing Chamber RVA to new organizations and inviting them to join us on this journey. We refreshed and implemented new membership tiers that are intended to attract businesses of all sizes and allow investment at levels that suit each member's needs. The membership committee also started hosting Meet Chamber RVA virtual sessions twice a month to enable interested businesses to learn more about Chamber RVA and its activities in a small and informal setting. These conversational sessions have been a great way to start the relationship building process among new prospects, existing members, and Chamber RVA leadership. Looking forward, we'll continue to build on our momentum from last year with a focus on 3 key areas where we bring particular value to our investors. The first area is leadership. Membership provides access to content and services that enable businesses to grow their internal leadership talent through multiple career phases. We also provide venues to foster the relationships between businesses and the individuals that run them that will enable us collectively to lead our community forward. The second area is business resiliency. As we look forward to a post-pandemic environment, our content and services will continue to focus on assisting members to rebuild and strengthen their businesses, as well as enhancing preparedness for future disruptions. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll continue to focus on community by challenging ourselves to ensure that our work and priorities are raising the current and future prospects for every person who calls RVA home. Among other things, and Paula mentioned this, we will continue to build a stable and expanding source of qualified and diverse talent to support our region's long-term business growth. But our efforts to retain members and attract new ones would be futile without a compelling and engaging Chamber RVA story. Developing that story and the ways we tell it is the work of the marketing committee, chaired by my friend Moses Foster. So Moses, tell us what's been keeping your committee busy.
Thank you, Patty. I am really excited to talk about the work that we're doing in the marketing committee. So much great stuff going on. I'm going to move through it really quickly because Ken Johnson's absolutely convinced that I can't manage in my time. So I'm going to prove him wrong. So the committee is stacked with really great talent, and you see it here. It's truly an all-star team. We've got Victor Branch, Paul Farrell, Will Melton, Chris Mumford, Allison O'Brien, and Doug White. I want to recognize them all because they're bringing so much to the table. So when we've organized and formed and we started talking about the year and our agenda, what we wanted to do was create an agenda that was both ambitious but also achievable. And so the first thing we wanted to do was look at our brand architecture. We're going to talk about each of these. The second is talk about member communications and the communications out to the public as well. And then third is our mission, vision, and values. So if we start with brand architecture, here's the thing. We do great work in the chamber. We don't always get credit for it, sometimes because our brand is so distributed and decentralized on occasion that people don't even recognize it's coming from the chamber, an event or a program. So what we wanted to do was create an architecture that allowed us to always get credit for the things that we did. And that didn't require a lot of reworking, it just required consistency. And so what we did was take some of the unneeded variability in our brand and coalesce it into these properties that actually were consistently shown. So as you can see that we have this great circle motif, let's use it. Let's use the Chamber RVA master brand whenever we can. And then let's always, even when there are exceptions, like Mission Tomorrow, which has built its own equity and so warrants, maybe treating the brand a little bit differently. Let's just make sure that we get credit for it as a chamber. So you see that endorser line underneath the brands that ensures that no matter what you're seeing that's brought to you by the chamber, we always are connecting it to the Chamber RVA master brand. Hopefully that makes Patty's job easier by increasing awareness and net promotion as well. So that's what we did with the architecture. On communication strategy, the thesis here is pretty simple. In my opinion, monolithic approaches don't work, right? People join and engage for various reasons. There's a logical classification of those reasons and interests. They're called segments. So as we're digging in, we're looking at the membership base, we're looking at the different reasons and ways and interests that people have in the chamber. And we want to make sure that the communications and the content that they receive, match up to those expectations. So that's the work that we're doing with regard to the communication strategy. And then finally on mission, vision, and values, this has been really exciting. We all know that the earth moved under our feet in 2020, right? So equity and social justice issues finally got the attention that they deserved. We had a global pandemic. Businesses really took a hit and had to figure out how to rebuild. We also had a new strategic plan, right, as we were organizing. And for all of those reasons and more, we really felt that we'd be remiss if we didn't relook at the mission, vision, and values to just basically ensure that they were commensurate with our time. And we sat down and we started this process as a committee, and we said, all right, let's take a look. Let's start to review the current mission, vision, and values. And if you advance the slide, I won't go through every word, but here's the current mission, the current vision, and current values. And you'll see that it's pretty traditional content. Build a thriving regional community by supporting the success of our members. Nothing at all wrong with that. But we thought it could be, we thought we could up the ante just a bit. But I have to say, the process that we were using to arrive at a new mission and vision and values was very, very staid and traditional. And we probably would have ended up with another mission, vision, and values that was impressively average. And then Chris Mumford, we were having a conversation, and Chris Mumford on our team kind of leaned in and he said, I don't know if you've ever worked with Chris Mumford, but he's understated, but he drops bombs, good bombs, but he drops bombs. So he's like, what if we thought about this differently? We're like, that's interesting. Tell us more. He's like, well, what if, the words that we used reflected the kind of organization we really wanted to be? Not necessarily who we are, but what we really want to be. We want to be dynamic. We want to be innovative. We want to be different. Suppose the language and the vision and the mission shaped that vision. And so we were like, yeah. So how do we do it? And he said, well, can I take this back to my team and, we can talk about it, and bring you back something, bring something back to the committee. And we said, well, let's see. The president of the ad agency of the year wants to take this to his award-winning team and think about our mission, vision, and values. We're like, get all over it. We're behind you. So he took that away. He came back the next marketing committee meeting, and he started to show us something that felt very, very different. And if you advance the slide, I'm going to paraphrase and summarize. But there were a lot of things embedded in this work. And one of the questions that he asked is, can a chamber of commerce be courageous? And we love that, right? So what does that look like? Well, we're actually in the process right now of figuring that out. So if you advance one more, there was another slide. Is there a way to make this yummier? And we presented this to the EC and we presented it to the board, and we didn't know what to expect. And everybody was like, yes. Tell us more. We want to do this. So there was a lot of energy behind it. And if you advance to the next slide, we started asking these questions. Can we be more unexpected? Can we be more creative? Can we inspire greatness? Can we act audaciously? Can we feel more modern, more relevant, can we project resilience? Those were the kinds of things that we talked about. So we are currently in the process of this exploration. We're actually working with a team from the Brand Center as well, where we've got a group of unadulterated minds that can think about what we could be as opposed to all the reasons why we can't be those things. We're going to bring that work back. We're going to talk about it as a committee. We're going to talk about it as a board. We're going to talk about it as an organization. But our hope as a marketing committee is that we can push the thinking and the organization to be all of these things that we really want to be. So more to come, but we're really excited about this work. And I think it's going to be a great 2021. I think I made it in time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mark Horgan now.
Good. Thank you, Moses. And Ken, you were right. I only ran a couple of minutes over. So Moses, great job. Thank you very much. That was a terrific presentation. We've been very excited about the work that the marketing committee has been doing this year and really challenging who we are and what we want to be as an organization. But I also hope you can hear through the other committee chairs as they presented the passion, the energy, and really the meaningful work that they are doing. There are other committees we didn't feature today, just again, in the interest of time, but the work that's being done by the committees is very meaningful work. And it won't stop there. 2021 will continue to bring compelling events and programs like our Education Summit, our icons, our Mission Tomorrow, the things that you have known that the Chamber has done and continue to do those things. So speaking about the Shared Values Summit, it was such a tremendous success this past year. We'll be continuing the conversations again into this year. And instead of a single summit experience, we'll be hosting a series of 4 events every other month, starting in late March, leading up to the intercity visit. Our first event will feature Rick Wade, who is a leading U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He's leading the Chamber of Commerce's Equality and Opportunity Initiative, in which the U.S. Chamber has partnered with more than 500 chambers and associations across the country, including Chamber RVA, to pursue policy and private sector solutions to bridge underlying racial divides that contribute to broader systemic inequities in our society. And so while last year's Shared Value Summit was a replacement for the intercity visit, which we needed to do because of COVID, we plan to do both events this year. And we want to strategically connect the content strategies between the 2 programs. So our intercity visit trip this year is planned for October 5th through 7th. And we're going to go to Charlotte, focusing on issues of race and equity that persist in Southeast cities. Now, Charlotte was chosen as well so that people could drive there. In the event that people still felt flying wasn't the right thing to do, we wanted a city that we could get to easily. But Charlotte is also a little bit ahead of us on this opportunity and looking at the major focus areas that we're looking at. So their Charlotte 2040 Regional Plan Initiative really came out of a call to action from Raj Chetty study that he did that ranked Charlotte 50 out of 50 metro areas for economic mobility a few years ago. So they jumped in and they are addressing the equity issues, and we're beginning to do the same thing here in Richmond, and felt like this year's trip would be a great place to go see what they're doing and how we can take some of those lessons learned and bring them back here. This year's trip will be planned by Polly White, and she will do a terrific job with this. So we have a lot of exciting times ahead, and we look forward to the journey. And now I want to move to our panel discussion, which is the topic for today is moving forward RVA business perspective. So I want to introduce Polly White, the founder of Gather. So she's not only leading our intercity visit trip, but she's also going to be our moderator for today's discussion. So Polly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. So for decades, organizational leaders have been debating the value of bringing employees together into the same space to work versus what they used to call at the beginning of my career telecommuting, and more recently, working from home. So in recent years, the work from home movement has been increasing as personal and digital technology have continued to advance. And while we're already speeding towards these different ways to work, the pandemic lockdowns made us address this in real time this year. The last year has proven that many types of work can be tackled successfully from remote settings, more than many of us ever imagined, unfortunately. Supporting both the needs of organizations and the needs of employees during this pandemic has really been a great accomplishment for most organizations. But we're also reminded of the importance of in-person interactions. We know as human beings, we need to gather. Being physically together is important to our health and our well-being. And we also know that physical proximity helps drive creativity, culture, performance, and success in organizations. So right now, many of our member organizations are actively planning for re-entry. They're not only considering when employees will return to physical workspaces, but in some cases, how many will return or if any will return at all. They're considering the value and purpose of in-person collaboration and how to organize the workspace to meet these needs. This is a really complex but important issue for both large and small organizations. Another important community movement has taken center stage. That is a focus on underlying racial divides They've contributed to these broader systemic inequities in our society and our communities locally. As Atlanta's Fed President Raphael Bostic commented during our Shared Value Summit last fall, and I'm going to quote, "Richmond has gotten a lot of news coverage around this history and legacies, and there's an unspoken element that many of the voices that are rising up are voices that haven't been heard before." He and several other Shared Value Summit presenters encouraged us to be focused and to use a collective impact approach to addressing these social inequities and to go to places that are not our usual places. He challenged us to listen to each other's aspirations and hopes for our community. So it's not just about what's in the paper or what's in the news, but about people's real experiences. In this moment, leaders have a unique opportunity to reimagine what the future of work will look like and to make it a reality. Leaders also have an opportunity to think about the role of businesses in the community and to be a force for good. Today, we're all starting to move out of this crisis management we've been in, and thank goodness. And we are beginning to think about what the future is going to look like and what the steady state could be. We're really excited to dig into these questions today and with our very esteemed group of panelists. So please join me in welcoming our panelists today. We have Ed Bain, President, Dominion Energy. Also Sherry Armstrong, President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Greater Richmond. We have Maria Tedesco, President, Atlantic Union Bank, and Chris Mumford, President of the Martin Agency. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today and sharing all of your knowledge and experience with our members. So I do want to jump right in to make sure that we have plenty of time to discuss things. So I'm going to call on each of you in turn so that you'll know when to unmute. So Ed, can we start with you? Tell us, how have your team members who can work virtually, how have they responded to this new work arrangement that they have? And how are you and your organization reimagining the way that we go to work in the future?
Thanks, Polly. First, I'd like to start with, I'm just very proud of how our teams have responded during this COVID environment overall. We've answered the bell for our customers, delivering our essential service on a daily basis, keeping the power flowing, and responding to outages from many weather events, from things like Hurricane Isaias last summer to the most recent ice storm. And as you know, due to the nature of the work that we do, we've had roughly 2/3 of our folks that have gone into the office most days, but about 1/3 or 35% of our workforce has been working virtually since March. And our colleagues have truly embraced the change and continue to perform at a high level. If you look at operational metrics, productivity metrics, our projects, et cetera, our team has done a great job and continue to do so. What we've also learned from some pulse surveys that we've done is employees appreciate the additional flexibility that the company and the leaders have been providing and reimagining the workspace, how we get work done, the utilization of tools, while also keeping safety, reliability, and operational excellence at the forefront. And so there are many of our teammates that are looking forward to reintegrating back into the office environment in some form, but they have signaled through our most recent employee engagement survey that they would like to maintain some of the flexibility that's been provided over the past year. And so we are considering the long-term possibilities and implications of remote working for positions in the workforce that are able to do so, while also balancing things like company culture, collaboration, training, innovation, all those things that a very tenured workforce can maintain over time. But when you're bringing in, roughly 500 to 1,000 new employees every year, you want to make sure that you instill those values and they can execute at the level that you would expect. And so we are considering changes to the physical workplace, as you know, and some of those things will be how many people come back to work, how we change the workspace, et cetera. as well as different policy changes. I'll just have to admit, before the pandemic, I wasn't a huge fan of the flex work schedules and all those things. But I was like Allen Iverson. If you said flex, like flex. But I'm much better with it now, and we know that our work schedules have to be different. So I think it'll really be a hybrid approach for most of our folks at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yes, I know a lot of companies are considering these hybrid types of schedules, the 2-3-2, 2 days at home, 3 days in the office, 2 days for the weekend, or some variation of that. So we're all going to have to be looking at that over time. Chris, a slightly different question for you, just a variation. We know that the Martin Agency is known all over the world for its creativity, but in my experience, so many great ideas come from the meeting after the meeting, or in the hallways, or over a cup of coffee, or just that shared conversation. How has your organization continued to create through the challenges of the past 12 months?
Thanks, Polly. Oddly, we've been virtual at about 100% since last March. And I've sort of was in the same place. Most of the ideas I thought happened in the hallways or in the kitchens and through, drinks at a bar. And the fact is, it's just not happening. We're about as creative as we've ever been. I believe our productivity has probably gone up if we truly measured it. And what we've found is people have become more and more accountable to their work every day now that they have more control over it. It's almost counterintuitive to me, to be honest, Polly. And but as it relates to what we're going to do next, we generally think the genie is out of the bottle and you can't put it back in. So we've decided to get very comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we're in the process of hiring 30 to 50 new people in the next few months, and we're dealing with questions of whether those people even live in the city and how we manage those challenges where our people are collaborating across state lines. So we're embracing all of that. We also believe it's going to be some sort of hybrid approach, but the creativity is flowing regardless. It's like something that you can't stop. And we're looking forward to figuring out how to continue to embrace that. And a lot of that comes through in our culture. You're on mute, Polly.
There we go. It's the 2020 statement, right? Unmute. So we're all going to have to look at how we look at our workplaces over the next several years. And I do agree with you. I think the genie is out of the bottle, and that we're all going to have to be considering how we come back to work, in what fashion, how are we going to still have remote work for people to do. The employees are going to want that flexibility. Okay, let's shift gears for just a moment. We're going to go from inside the organization to outside the organization. The world, we know, has experienced a pretty sudden transition from sustained growth and that scarce talent resources. You couldn't hire anybody a couple of years ago. It was very difficult. And now we've gone to job instability and rapid unemployment in a lot of the industry sectors. And frankly, some people are worried about future recessions. So people in organizations who, as a function of their skills and their occupations, the ones that were a little bit more future ready, a little more crisis proof before the pandemic, those people seem to be emerging a little bit stronger from it. And I'll tell you, at Gather, we had some members who have substantially benefited from the pandemic. But then there are many others, those whose skills or occupations were less ready to withstand this. And these people are the ones that have suffered greatly. This has made pre-existing inequalities even more pronounced. So there are growing discussions around corporate purpose. The Business Roundtable recently redefined the purpose of corporations to promote an economy that serves all Americans. And CEOs are committing to lead their companies for the benefit of all stakeholders, including customers and employees and suppliers and so on, and including their communities. And we at Chamber RVA, as Jennifer was explaining earlier in our meeting, we are redefining our mission and work with an eye towards equality and community building. So, Sherry, I want to start with you this time because you have a unique perspective. In your experience, how are businesses approaching community engagement?
Well, thanks, Polly, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. We're seeing a couple of things, I think, that are evolving, particularly people being remote. A big part of how corporations engage their employees engaged were really hands-on volunteer activities and adopting organizations and seeing the issues through that face-to-face experience and putting a human face on that. And as the pandemic hit, a lot of that stopped. Many organizations were not able to take volunteers in, and corporations had to rethink, how are they going to stay in touch and be helpful in the community. So from a community engagement standpoint, we've seen a big shift in more digital learning. We've been able to provide sessions for some of our corporations in the region around what's happening in education, what's happening in housing, what are some of the needs really related to COVID that people can be more sensitive to. We've also seen some pivot in just making sure that resources are there to support people in need. So the good thing is, I think, particularly from our large corporations, they were still really interested in trying to engage and keep employees engaged and knowledgeable. And at the same time, putting their money into those issues that were really important. The COVID fund, the corporations contribute generously to that. So we saw just engagement shift, I think, just as a you can't do that face-to-face or direct. But I think corporate social responsibility as it relates to racial inequities and social justice, as well as what has happened as a result of COVID, just our marginalized communities and disparities in our communities related to a health crisis. I think corporations will reimagine what that looks like in terms of how they engage and get involved and be more responsive to what their employees are looking for as it relates to being really in touch with those issues. We, for example, are working with the Chamber and sponsoring the Power of Purpose event to give many of our mid to smaller size companies across the area an opportunity to understand what corporate social responsibility is and how to engage. But going from in-person to digital has been a shift. But I think our companies always innovate there and will stay engaged, and the philanthropic community will be ready to stand by to support those efforts.
Okay, fantastic. Maria, just a slightly different question. So how is your organization operating around a set of values that go beyond profitability? And how have your values and your organization's values been put into action this past year?
Well, thank you, Polly. It's nice to be with Chamber RVA and the panel today. Well, at AUB, it's not just about the bottom line. In our 5-year strategic plan, our culture, our values, we speak to the importance of taking care of all constituencies, particularly the care of customers, our communities where we live and work, and our teammates that serve our clients each day. And I would say this year was no different. It was a bit more on steroids, I think. A great example would be the approach we took to government stimulus package and the Paycheck Protection Program, or what we call PPP, even with 95% of our office staff being virtual. Our teammates who work in the branches were not virtual, of course, but the rest of the company was basically virtual since last March. So when the government announced the stimulus plan and PPP, we knew we had a legacy to live up to. AUB has a reputation for being there for customers, especially through the tough times. And since I've came to AUB over 2.5 years ago, I've heard story after story of customers who came to us when their bank let them down. So at AUB, we saw ourselves, quite frankly, as financial first responders. And It just was an easy kind of way to look at the delivering our services. And we took it really, really seriously. We knew not only that our customers needed us, but our communities needed us. So first, we developed a number of hardship accommodations, including fee waivers, loan deferrals, to help our customers who were financially impacted by COVID. We also made a decision that PPP loans and getting them to our customers and the community broadly was our #1 priority. And quite frankly, it was an all hands on deck event with over 1,000 teammates working 7 days a week to manage the volume of applications in a completely virtual loan processing environment. I never would have thought this was possible, and it is possible. We built an easy to use digital application and a loan process in less than 5 days. And our goal behind that was to get expedited approvals to our customers. They were scared. They wanted to know that they were going to get the funds. And the call to action, the company, as I said, was easy, given our customer focus on culture. Quite frankly, we have examples of teammates working all through the night because they were so passionate about getting the loans their customers needed. We also opened up an application process to non-customers. This was also an easy decision. Plenty of other places didn't only wanted to serve their own customers, but we felt that there are businesses who were not banking with us, but they needed help too, and they were a part of the fabric of the community. So we said we would take any non-customers and help them get a PPP loan because they had, a need for funding as well. Quite frankly, there were some banks that let their customers down with inadequate processes, their inability to handle the volume. And we ended up proudly, I'd like to say, being a lifeline for those businesses that were completely left out in the cold. And I'm proud to say that we well punched over our weight and provided over 11,400 PPP loans to businesses that employ over 100,000 employees. So Polly, I would just say, we're super proud of that, the work that we did in phase 1. We remain committed to the current phase of PPP that's currently going on right now. And all of this was through an entirely with a staff of teammates working from home. So I am a true believer now as well in the possibilities.
Well, I'll tell you that we have some personal experience with your organization and you all did a terrific job. Chris, same question to you. How have your company's values been put into action over the past year?
I will tell you, crisis is not the only time when it's important to invest in culture. And I would argue that Maria's organization's continued growth is because they've always had this culture, and this culture responded really well and like it should in a crisis environment. And if there's anything I would take away from what I've learned over the last several years is that investing in a culture that not only responds in crisis, but is the kind of culture that talent wants to live in. It's the most important thing I've learned. And it goes beyond just creating a nice place to work. What's important to us and what we've done over the last several years, and it's been a competitive advantage for us, is we've aspired to create a safe, creative environment. And you can't have creativity and innovation without an environment that feels safe for the people that work there. We've done a lot of things to try to encourage our people, our employees, to pursue holistic wellness in their work life. And that means being able to bring their whole selves to work. That means major efforts towards equity and inclusion, so that everybody who walks in the door feels like they can bring their whole self to work. And that means also investing in wellness efforts, which, coming out of a year of crisis, if you're not prepared as an organization to deal with mental wellness challenges and stress and all of that, you're behind already, and you need to create a culture that nurtures your talent. And then the fourth thing, and maybe as important as the others, is be accountable with your investment in the growth of your talent. The game is to put people in a position to do the best work of their lives, to invest in their growth so that the work that they do contributes major value to your organization, to the community. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And I think it's for organizations that are bottom line focused, you can miss the mark. What's important is that people feel like they're contributing at their highest level. That's why they stay. And that's why you retain them. So we've done a lot of things to make sure that happened. We signaled our ambition early on by blowing up our HR group and creating a talent and culture group. We put these people out in the middle of the floors when we actually were in the office. We started talking to our people more. We did an equity audit to make sure that we are on top of making sure everybody is getting paid the way they should get paid. And we eliminated any possibility or perception of pay discrepancies, which I'm proud to say we've done. That group has been sort of the heart and soul of driving the growth of our company, and they have nothing to do with managing clients or reaching out to win new business. They have everything to do with keeping the talent of our company healthy and productive and thriving. One last thought, and because I think it's important, and I'm sorry to go over, but it's sort of what's driven the Martin Agency. So if you're going to learn anything from us, this is it. Build this kind of culture. We've experimented like crazy across community building, inside and out, across the well-being of our employees, across how they contribute and how we help them train to contribute, and even in how we hire and recruit. And we've tried a lot of things and set a lot of little fires, and not all of them have caught. And that's part of the signaling to your staff and to your industry of what you're all about. And so I would encourage you to light a lot of little fires and don't get caught up in planning so much that you never act, because good intentions are wonderful, but until they turn into action, nothing happens. Last note, you celebrate what you measure. Post your workforce composition numbers. I'm proud to say our executive committee is 60% women, 25% people of color. Over the last few years, our people of color in the officer corps has grown 47%, and across the entire company, we've grown our people of color by 71%. That is not easy to do in our industry, but it's not good enough. And we are continuing to post those numbers, and I think it's important for organizations who care to do that. I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
No, that was great. Chris, I love so many of the things that you said about making sure you're putting people into a place where they can do their best work. And the fact that you've taken HR to a whole new level. Being just an old HR person myself, when people use HR correctly, I give them a big thumbs up. Ed, can we bring you in on the conversation here? Just a slight variation on the question, how has your organization's purpose evolved? And are there things that your organization has done this past year that have made you particularly proud?
Yeah, I don't know, you might have dropped the mic after Chris, but so as I think about what's happened over this past year, I mentioned earlier, they're definitely proud of delivering each and every day. But one of the things that Chris touched on was the innovation. Our people, when you give them space to figure out the issues, they have been able to solve them. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. A lot of our work in the field is person to person with customers, interacting with our customers, our contractors, et cetera. And things like as simple as having to sign documents or doing open houses. And within a matter of weeks, literally, our employees spun up electronic timesheets, electronic signatures for documents, from anything from easements to underground agreements, you name it. Even electronic, for the places that have accepted, electronic recordation, notaries, virtual open houses for transmission projects and our strategic underground projects. And it was just not from our professional workforce, wasn't from just engineers or IT, it was also from our craft. they were looking for different ways to improve the business in this type of environment. And so if we're building a culture that allows space for that, then you'll see those things happen when you do have a crisis. In addition, you mentioned earlier about diversity, inclusion, building on the equality within the community. If you weren't already on the D&I journey, your employees aren't going to believe what you're trying to do now. And so luckily, we've been on this journey for about 15 years. And through this work, we've done things like Chris mentioned. We've been very transparent on diversity goals. So we've said we want to improve the diversity in the organization by 1% every year. You may say 1% is not much. Well, that's over 50% diverse hires in an organization of our size. And we're meeting that in the first year, and that's our goal continuing. We're also transparent in every leadership meeting that we have on where we stand from an employee composition as well as a leadership composition. In addition, you've seen the things that we've done around social justice, as well as the contributions to HBCUs and any minority student, regardless of where they go to school. All those things are important to build on top of your core value, because you do want an environment where people are respected, valued, and appreciated, because that's what makes the difference between good companies and great companies.
Thank you, Ed. And it really is all about the employees. When we come to the bottom line, the employees are the organization. They are what make us strong. So switching gears again a little bit, one of the things that we've learned from our years of inner city visits, and if you haven't been on one of the inner city visits, you need to sign up, is that if you want to really make a difference, you need to have bold leadership. So Maria, I'm going to start with you. And the question is, what does modern day bold leadership look like to you? And then if you had to pick maybe one key issue for our business community to work on to fuel Richmond's growth and success, what would that be?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I feel as though I'm surrounded by bold leaders right on the panel. But today's, I'm excited about the future, because I do think that today business leaders have a unique opportunity to be bold. And if they're not, I think they'll be left behind. And I actually looked up the definition of what it means to be bold, and I just loved it. It said a bold leader is described as someone who not only sees the ideas, but they also act on it, and they lead towards it boldly and without hesitation. They are referred to as trailblazers who create significant paradigm shift to drive change. And I feel, we think about our country, it's had a broad awakening, and we need to seize the moment as leaders to take decisive action and help drive change, lead in a more positive and impactful way, both internally in our companies, because our teammates or our employees, they're looking for that, but also in our communities and our society at large. So I think it's time to be bold, and business leaders need to take a public stand. I've been in the banking for a long time, and it's very rare to have seen a CEO of a bank take a public stand, but I think it's time that all leaders take a public stand on social issues such as healthcare, education, and systematic racism. It's time to speak up and do something about it. And it's never more important than today, given what's gone on this past year, and I think it's long overdue. Internally, I think leaders must create an environment at work that encourages diversity and inclusion. I agree with Ed, you just can't, stand up a DEI and say, yep, check the box, we've done that. It has to be a place also where Chris mentioned, employees can bring their whole self to work. But there has to be investments that support those employees with programs. And those programs have to include things like sensitivity training, employee resource groups, more equitable recruiting. I could go on, but we have to put money behind those programs and behind what we're saying inside a company. It also has to start at the very top of the organization. I know we already know that. It has to be woven into the fabric of the culture. Again, if you're going to have a DEI council, you have to put good financial support and investment in leadership sponsorship. And lastly, leaders must invest dollars in programs externally to support the community. That's our plan at UB. And I'm proud to be a part of a company that is working towards being a much better part of the community in that regard.
Okay, Sherry, same question. What does modern day bold leadership look like to you?
Well, I would say everything that Maria said, and just a couple of things I would add. And I think it's, from where I sit, especially as we work a lot with the nonprofit sector and the public sector, honestly, and trying to really work hard every day to address the issues that we have. I think bold leadership going forward needs to be all of those things that Maria suggested. I think our business leaders, especially though, have to engage more on what's actually really going on in the community and to be willing to roll their sleeves up and get involved. And it's one thing sort of the lane you're in with your business, but I think we've all got to step away from what our institution is a bit more and say, how do we bring leadership to some of these issues that we know we have to change? We keep talking about systemic racism. When we talk about these issues, it undergirds everything that we're dealing with in our community. So to be bold, if we really want to tackle housing or affordable housing, how do we come around that in a measured approach and really go for some outcomes that are going to make a difference? And it's some of it's learning, but some of it is really collaborative leadership that's willing to sit at a table and figure out what the solutions are and work with the nonprofit sector and the service sector to really drive for some of these changes. So I think we're going to have to step out a little bit more and be more measured and intentional about the issues that we're trying to do. I think we've done a great job in this region collaborating through the pandemic, where crisis hits, everyone can get hyper focused on that and be very intentional. We're going to have to sustain that same level of collaboration from a leadership perspective if we truly want to have the collective impact that we all talk about. So, I would just say we need more business leaders willing to serve on organizations that are trying to drive these big changes, to come around the community table to really problem solve more with that. The money can do a lot, but it can't do everything. And I think sometimes the philanthropic community sometimes feel like if we just put money towards it, it'll make the difference. But the leadership that we have in this region with our business leaders, collective action is going to be really, really important.
Fantastic. And thanks everybody for sharing that. We're going to go with one quick last question. I'm going to ask everybody, I'm going to go around the group and ask everybody to try and hold it to about 30 seconds each so that we finish on time. Okay, so the question is, with all that's changing in our working lives and in our communities, what do you think is the greatest opportunity for the Richmond region? What are our greatest opportunities? And Chris, we're going to start with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is a hard one to answer, but here's my true belief. My belief is that the leadership of this city, the leaders that live in the city, to sort of build on what Sherry said, have all the power to create all the change that this city could ever imagine. It can create that city on the hill that we dream about. So my wish is that everybody listening today walks away from this and in their own lives figures out a way to make more change happen. If you're on a board, push that board to be a little bit more courageous than they've ever been. If you have kids that go to a school, push that school to be more equitable in how they hire teachers, into the cultures that they build inside those schools. If you belong to clubs, make sure that those clubs are driving towards social change and push those clubs beyond their legacy practices. All the organizations that we are all involved with every day will force that change. And if the people in this group do a little bit more everywhere, I think that drives the whole city forward in a way that we've never seen before.
Fantastic. Ed, you're up next. Same thing. Greatest opportunities.
All right. Well, first, we do need to recognize that progress has been made. So we have a foundation to build on. We need to start there. But if you want to be very specific, I think we need to continue to educate. We need to continue to attract business development. We need to continue to work on workforce readiness, economic inclusion, affordable housing, and transportation infrastructure. If you think about those things, and they're interrelated and they're all big, but those are items that we need to work on. And I believe we all need to play our part. And then the last thing is the time is now. We have to take action. It's incumbent upon all of us to do our part to move the region forward, to make sure that today, these past 12 months, whatever time frame you want to put on it, it's not a moment, make it a movement.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Sherry, greatest opportunities?
I think I would agree with what Ed and Chris said, but I think I would continue to act with a sense of urgency. I mean, I think that is a really big priority. And I think what resonates for me, and that is economic mobility is really a huge opportunity for the region. And I think if we do that by addressing our racial opportunity gaps, we'll be able to move forward in a much bigger way. And so, three big ones for me under that are housing, education, and jobs. And if we can get really focused around that and mobilize, I think we can move the region forward. But a sense of urgency is still needed, and not to get complacent.
Thank you. Maria, you're batting cleanup.
Okay,
So
I'll do this quickly, but I completely agree with everybody's comments. I would just also say, being new to Richmond, Richmond has a great opportunity to tell our city's story much better and in a more contemporary way. I think we have plenty to offer: quality of life, moderate cost of living, educated workforce. And I would also add that we're strategically located, the center of the East Coast, which puts us among the potential mid-size metro area winners for economic development and relocation. And I've heard of plenty of stories of people I know in big cities relocating to a more moderate cost of living with more, work from home flexibility. And I think RVA is a great option. I can share from my personal perspective, living in downtown Boston and Chicago, compared to these cities, the cost of living here is far better. The taxes are much lower. I know many people might not agree with me, but everything's relative. But what you get is an incredible quality of a community that is engaged. And I am super impressed by this. And, when I came here, I didn't know what Richmond was all about, what the brand, what they stood for. So I just have to say, I feel very lucky to be here in Richmond, and I want to tell more people, and I want to tell our story maybe in a different way. So that's what I would say. I would also don't want us to hold back, because, it's clear that work has to get done to address equality and inclusion, which is not unique to Richmond. So we definitely have to, address that opportunity. But I do believe if we can find a way to bring everybody along, and, it's time that rising tides lifts all boats, and Richmond has just a unique opportunity ahead of us.
I agree. Well, thank you, everybody. Yay, panel. You did a fantastic job. And I'm going to turn this right back over to Mark to finish us out. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Polly, for leading a great discussion, and really thank you, Ed and Chris and Sherry and Maria, for a very thoughtful and really inspiring discussion. I really believe we are poised to do great things in this region in 2021. And I hope for everyone who dialed in today, what you got to see was a glimpse of the great people and the great work being done by Chamber RVA. So thanks to every single one of you for attending and joining us today, and for supporting Chamber RVA. And so I'm very happy to say we are adjourned, and thanks again. Have a great day.